Today, we are going to talk about water pollution and how it impacts the quality and functions of water. Water pollution is defined as the introduction of abnormal substances caused by human activities affecting the quality of water.
There are many contributing factors that are causing issues in our world today. Some of these issues we will talk about are agriculture, the oil and gas industry, tar sands extraction, thermal pollution, road salt, pharmaceuticals, and human waste effluent.
Water pollution is a growing concern that spans across the globe and is affecting the current quality of water both nationally and internationally. This is resulting in deteriorating water quality on a worldwide scale, not just for animals, but humans too.
Water pollution affects everything and everybody.
As agriculture is one of Alberta's biggest industries, it contributes heavily to the pollution of both surface and groundwater. Agricultural runoff carries fertilizers as well as pesticides from crop fields into aquatic environments. This can then have major negative effects on the environment. Fertilizers are comprised of mixtures of phosphorus and nitrogen, which can enter lakes and rivers during heavy rain and crop irrigation. Within lakes, additions of phosphorus and nitrogen above naturally occurring levels leads to changes in the algae species that are present. This can potentially upset a lake's ecological balance. High levels of phosphorus are particularly concerning for the health of Alberta's lakes because it significantly increases algae productivity and growth. If present in high enough quantities, phosphorus can trigger excessive growth, leading to lake-wide algae blooms in what is known as eutrophication.
After an algae bloom occurs, bacterial decomposition of the dead matter can deplete oxygen levels, leading to the creation of dead zones in which life is unsustainable. Phosphorus levels have also been shown to directly impact a particular problematic Alberta native algae species called M. aeruginosa, commonly known as blue-green algae. This species has been a serious human and ecological health hazard over recent years due to its toxin production. These toxins make water unsafe to swim in and cause large fish deaths, such as those recently seen in Pigeon Lake. Increased phosphorus levels have shown an increased production of toxins. As phosphorus addition caused by fertilizer leaching continues, this problem will only get worse. Like fertilizers, pesticides that are carried into lakes and rivers from agriculture runoff have been shown to have negative ecological impacts. Fish that are exposed to sublethal concentrations of pesticides can have permanent losses or reductions in their ability to smell, which in turn may reduce their capacity to forage.
Thermal pollution occurs when heated water is released into lakes and rivers, changing the temperature of natural ecosystems. It is present in some places in Alberta, such as seen here at the City of Edmonton's Gold Bar Water Treatment Plant, which discharges treated sewage into the North Saskatchewan River. Another notable past example is the Lake Wobbleman Power Plant, which was in operation between 1956 to 2010. The long-term temperature effects that are caused by a power plant's thermal discharge have been extensively examined in Germany's Lake Stelken. This was done by measuring the lake's temperature over the last 50 years, including the 24-year period in which a nuclear power plant operated on the lake's shore. During the plant's operation, the surface water temperature of that lake was increased by 0.8 degrees Celsius, and the lake did not undergo winter stratification. Stratification, or the mixing of water layers, is ecologically important because it affects the cycling of nutrients throughout the lake. Furthermore, in areas where heated water is constantly released, winter ice is thinned or does not form at all. This can affect fish spawning patterns and lead to unsafe ice conditions. Pharmaceuticals such as hormones and antibiotics can be found polluting Alberta's water systems. They enter our water through human waste and when unused medication is improperly disposed of, as they cannot always be removed during the treatment of sewage. Some of the major groups of pharmaceuticals entering water systems include antibiotics, beta blockers, lipid regulators, and steroids. A variety of studies have shown that the concentration of hormones present within wastewater are great enough to cause both behavioral and physical changes in exposed fish. The currently seen concentrations of synthetic estrogen used in contraceptive pills have been shown to lead to male feminization of fish and population collapses. Additionally, currently measured surface water concentrations of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRI class antidepressants, have been documented to lead to behavioral alteration of some fish. For example, in mosquito fish, SSRI exposure leads to the loss of the species' natural predator avoidance behaviors, increasing the likelihood they will be eaten.
Antibiotics are also a major concern, particularly because exposing bacteria in the water to uncontrolled concentrations of antibiotics allows them to build resistance to their effects. The bacteria which are not killed by the antibiotic reproduce to create colonies of bacteria which no longer respond to antibiotic application. This can put humans at risk of contracting illnesses that can no longer be cured by modern medicine. A 2005 study found that water samples taken from downstream of a sewage treatment plant tested positive for 3 different antibiotics. They also looked at the antibiotic resistance of the bacteria in the water and found that 3 bacteria species they received from the river were resistant to at least 2 of 6 antibiotics they tested them against. This allows us to see that antibiotic resistance in Alberta's rivers is a real threat which could potentially have large implications on the health of Albertans. In addition to risks to humans, antibiotics can also be toxic to aquatic species directly and can alter ecosystems by destroying the microbiotic populations within the water systems.
In Alberta, the cold winters and heavy snowfall means that governments must employ measures to keep roads safe and drivable during the winter months. To do this, road salt is often applied to melt layers of ice off the pavement and provide traction. In fact, 185,200 tons of salt were used from 2004 to 2005 on Alberta roads. Highway salting is a widespread practice and a major concern for provincial and national aquatic ecosystems, as the salt often runs off the road and into groundwater and lakes. For example, in Frenchman's Bay, an extensively polluted lagoon on the northern shore of Lake Ontario, researchers determined that the key source of contamination was road salt and hydrocarbons, which had been washed downslope from the nearby Highway 401. Additionally, they noted that during milder winter periods of thawing, the lagoon's salt concentration could increase by over 2,000 milligrams per liter in a single day. This is because when the snow melts, the resulting water carries sodium chloride to streams or allows it to leach into groundwater. Another study detailing the effects of road salt leakage showed that out of 13 streams monitored, 72% of water samples were chronically toxic to aquatic species, and 43% were deemed acutely toxic. Salt primarily has a negative effect on the aquatic animals as it affects the osmotic balance of the water, making it difficult for animals to regulate the concentrations of ions in their bodies. Alternative road de-icing techniques do exist, such as applying sand for added traction, or using potassium chloride, magnesium chloride, and calcium chloride. However, these are often more expensive and less research has been done on their safety.
Oil and gas production in Alberta is one of the largest contributors to our economy and has influenced Alberta's culture. For example, the name of the Edmonton Oilers is a demonstration of people's pride in the oil and gas industry. This economic gain does not come without its consequences, though, and many of the downfalls threaten the environment.
Alberta's oil industry is a source of various water pollutants. The most concerning of these pollutants include hydrocarbons, water used during fracking, and various heavy metals. These pollutants become present in the water supply throughout the process of oil production and disturb natural ecological functions in aquatic life, human populations, and local wildlife.
A provincial example of these negative outcomes is Cold Lake, Alberta, where it has been recently shown that in situ bitumen extraction leads to an increase in polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PACs, in the lake sediments outside of the extraction zone. Hydrocarbons are organic compounds made of entirely hydrogen and carbon, which can enter the aquatic systems in high concentrations during unintentional oil spills.
A very contentious issue is the fracking industry, where many people are unsure of the total impact fracking has on the environment. What is contentious about this is the use of water in this process and what happens with that water after.
A variety of companies and research studies have looked into the reusability of water injected into wells during hydraulic fracturing. Even if fracking effluent is extensively diluted, it still elicits a toxic response in fish. The idea of reusing water from hydraulic fracking to irrigate non-crop food in the farming industry has also been examined. Unfortunately, the results showed a decrease in plant growth with this reused water.
Heavy metal can leach into water systems and are easily ingested by fish and aquatic life, and lead to a process called biomagnification. Biomagnification is a stepwise increase in the amount of a toxin present in organisms as you move up each level of a food chain. These toxins can be very detrimental to the health of aquatic animals, as well as to the people who rely on fish and waterfowl as a food source. A study on the Athabasca River showed that metal contamination was found in the gills and digestive tract of cage mussels placed downstream of a mining site. There was also evidence that the mussels experienced oxidative stress due to the increased heavy metal intake, showing the harm that this type of contamination causes. Further research in the Fort Chipewyan area have shown that mercury levels commonly exceed the chronic guidelines to protect aquatic life and can even sometimes exceed the acute guidelines.
A large concern in Alberta that has drawn attention around water and human rights issues is the Athabasca River region in the northern part of the province. This region is susceptible to the largest and most intense oil sands and bitumen production in Canada, which in return places a massive stressor in the local water supply of the river water.
The intense production of bitumen demands high quantities of the limited local water, which also creates a small window for water recovery in the region and requires massive tailing ponds.
Oil sands creates a high demand and threat to water quality and quantity from the process of extraction, refinement, and transportation through pipeline routes. A multitude of metals have been observed in the local waterways, with the most concerning being lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic.
The current research focuses on the impacts these metals have on human populations, the environment, and freshwater fish. Some of the most detrimental and severely concerning issues are the direct and indirect effects these water pollutants have on human health and the rise in local medical illnesses.
An indirect example is the presence of mercury in local fish, which bioaccumulates and creates health concerns for anyone who relies on the fish as a main source of food, primarily the indigenous populations within the region.
The direct impacts of oil and gas industries have had on the ground and surface water further marginalize Indigenous populations as it restricts their access to clean drinking water and reduces fish and wildlife populations that they rely on for food, violating their human and treaty rights to hunt, fish, and trap.
Water is a necessity of life for all living things, including our own existence, and water pollution is becoming an increasingly big problem threatening our existence.
Water pollution in Alberta comes from many different sources, many of which are directly linked to Alberta's industry-based economy. All of these have serious and long-lasting negative effects on aquatic life and entire ecosystems. The biggest issue is that all of these pollutants that we have talked about come solely from human activities.
As we are the biggest contributors to local and global water pollution, what does this mean for us?
Expanding awareness through proper education on water pollution is needed for any hope in decreasing our impact on the environment. An increase in assessment, water recycling regulations, better regulations for monitoring, and efficient water recycling can assist in rehabilitating Alberta's water sources and conserving them for future generations.